Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Ashley. I'm currently a nursing student in New Jersey. I have really been wanting to start this channel honestly for years, but it's always been something, one thing or another in my life. And I realized that that's just life, so I'm going to start it anyway. Alright, so let's get to it. I might make a completely separate video of how I got into nursing school, so if anyone's interested in that, leave a comment below. If I get enough people that say they are interested, I'll make that video. So you just got accepted into nursing school, congratulations, or you are already in nursing school and you're just trying to get better grades. First things first, your mindset is literally everything. You cannot go through nursing school with a shit mindset. You can't. There's gonna be days. There's gonna be days where you don't want to do it. There's gonna be days where you cannot think of anything to physically get you out of bed. That is why you need to prepare for those days. I have had them, my friends have had them. That's just part of it. You need to have a support system going into it. So you need to make sure that your friends, your family, everyone's there to support you. And if you don't have those people in your life, look for them. At the end of the day, you are the person that you spend the most time with, right? So if you're the type of person that can't get yourself up, no one's gonna do it for you. And I'm not here to be that Debbie Downer, but I'm just saying, yeah, you can have your friends to help you, but at the end of the day, it's you. There's only so much that someone else can do for you, and you need to be able to talk yourself out of a rut, or when you're having a hard day. So if you're prepared for this, when you have days like that, you know your why, have like a deeper understanding as to like why you're doing this for yourself, and that's what gets you through the day. You don't have to have a perfect day. Sometimes just getting through the day is good enough, and we've all been there. Something that I did that I think can be helpful into getting yourself excited, either for a new semester or just in general nursing school, is making a semester vision board. This is something I did spring of 2024, so about a year ago for my semester. I'll show it to you, but I definitely think that doing this helped me on the daily, because sometimes you just get so caught up in the daily frustrations every day that you just forget why you're doing things. And this is mine. So just some things that I could look forward to outside of going to school, going to the gym. It was winter, about to be spring, so I put like some winter hobbies, some things I wanted to do in the spring as well. Some like affirmations, things like that. Also good grades, because that's something that I was really striving for. And then also consistency. That was like my biggest word, I would say, of last year, was just being consistent, because being consistent beats talent every single time. I'm telling you, you don't have to be the smartest person in the world. If you show up for yourself consistently, you're only gonna get better. You literally can't get worse if you're consistent. Like, that's just the reality of life. So you're getting ready in the morning, right? And you have your vision board up by where you're getting ready to look at every day. The next thing you should be doing is, this is gonna sound crazy, but literally like become delusional. Become so delusional in the fact that you are going to do well. Because if you don't head into this with that mindset, you're gonna get stuck. You need to be the best believer in you. So become delusional. I know I sound crazy, but become delusional that you will become so successful. All right, so now you have a great mindset to head into the semester. What are some things you can actually do to ace school? The first thing I would do, besides mindset, is planning and time management. And this doesn't just apply to nursing school, it applies to anything you want in life. You gotta plan. If you don't have a plan to fail, right? That's what everyone says. Especially now, like, there's so many resources that you can use to plan your time. I am personally a physical, like, I write everything down. I still have a physical planner. I know everyone has like Google Calendars. There's so many different types of software out there that you can use to organize your time, but I feel that writing everything down and like crossing it off a list for me is still the most effective. Like, for example, if I write down at 3 p.m. that I'm going to a tutoring session in my planner and I don't go, it's so much easier to like feel bad about yourself for not going than like if you just tell yourself, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go do that, like I'll do it, and then you don't do it. There's nothing to hold you accountable. So just have something that can hold you accountable, whether it's like a physical planner. If you're an online person, fine, use something online. I know Notion, a lot of people like to use Notion, or like Outlook calendar, Google Calendar. Find what works for you. And if you haven't found what works for you, just get your butt over to Staples and grab a planner and stick to some sort of daily routine outside of school. When it comes to time management and planning, something I would recommend is putting time limits on your apps. And I feel like, honestly, like we're pretty aware this day and age of our screen time and how much time we actually waste scrolling on social media. I mean, I'm guilty of that. Once I started to see the actual numbers, I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is ridiculous. Unless I'm watching some sort of like educational content. But set time limits. You can do that in settings on your phone, and I think that's extremely helpful. Maybe like 15 minutes a day. I feel like that would be helpful for you. Something else that you might need to do is, and listen, I know I'm going to sound privileged when I say this, but there's ways to work around it, okay? You might have to cut down your work hours, and I know that everyone can do that. I know that everyone can just quit their full-time job if they have, you know, family, kids. Like, I get that. But there are ways that you can work a little bit smarter, not harder. For example, you can maybe, I think a serving job is great because you can make more money in less time. In any way that you can shorten the amount of hours that you have to work and not put towards nursing school and other things in your life, the better, right? So if you can make more money in less time, why would you not do that? Why would you cap yourself at whatever, you know, your state wages or whatever you're making, your salary, when you can make more when you're serving? So that's something that might be useful for you. And that's what I did. I feel like having a job as a server, even if it was 1 or 2 shifts a week, that helped me with not only studying, but also when I wasn't studying, I wasn't doing nursing things. You know, it's important to still keep in touch with your friends and family, and it's not going to be as often. It's really not. But especially like certain days where your mental health is really not doing well, if you do have the opportunity to, you know, make more money in less time, you can use that time to take care of yourself and get mentally back in a better state. And that's something else that I'm going to talk about later on, but you really need to do that. Like, if you don't do that, I've seen people's mental health just go down the drain, and then their nursing classes is the next thing that's going down the drain too. Like, you really need to take care of yourself. Okay, so let's get down to the actual study hacks. So something that I recommend doing is getting a study group together, and they're really gonna say this a lot in nursing school, get study groups, but you wanna make sure that they're productive study groups, even if they're with like maybe 1 or 2 other students. I've noticed that once it gets past like 3 or 4 people, it becomes a mess. Take it from me, it really does become a mess. And you want this to be an effective conversation, right? So for example, you can bring up a topic that you're confused on and then ask your friend what they know about it. And something I realized is that sometimes that your friend will know something about it that you didn't, and like to them, that's just something that they easily remember, or they just understand it better, and that's okay. That's everyone's brains works differently. There were certain topics that like I just understood better and that made sense to me, and I feel like I was able to explain things in a way that made sense, because sometimes you just need to hear it. Like, you remember things better, I think, when you have like a conversation about it versus just reading it in a textbook, because it gets old. The textbooks are literally this big. Like, there's no way that you were reading every single line in that textbook. You're just not. You got to pick apart the topics that are important that you're expected to know, and even the ones that you aren't expected to know, but they could say that they'll throw it on a test. Yeah, just study that too. So yeah, have conversations, and again, make sure it's an effective conversation. And you could definitely take breaks to chat, right? I'm not saying you have to sit there for hours and just talk about content, but take your breaks. But when you're studying, study. Keep it studying. Like, you can schedule your breaks. I actually do this a lot when I'm studying on my own too. There's a lot of really great like YouTube music channels that play live music, or some of them aren't even live. They're just like streams music, and it's like study with me channels, and a timer goes off like every half hour, every 40 minutes. They have all different length ones, but I feel like that's really effective when you know you're gonna have a break soon. It's easier to focus, sit down, get things done that you need to get done when you know you have a break coming up. So utilizing those breaks is definitely helpful as well. So like I said before, I'm the type of person that needs physical notes, and the studies have all shown that when you physically write something down, it's easier for your brain to remember it. So even if you want to go home and like type up your notes, I recommend that you write your notes, and then maybe when you go home, you can make some sort of other online study guide for yourself if it's something that you want to be able to like put on your iPad or computer and take with you everywhere. But this is how I did my notes. I would write down my notes like as a teacher was speaking in class. Then I would go home and I would make study guides for the quizzes. So like whatever subjects from the past few weeks were going to be on the quiz, I would make myself a study guide. And yeah, you can use someone else's study guide or someone else's Quizlet, or Quizlet is a whole other story. But I just think it's better when you make the study guide, because it just helps you remember it better. And also, when I make the study guide, I'm using like the textbook and online resources, but I think that if you color code it, sometimes it makes it easier for you to remember certain things. I don't know, it's just how my brain works. Like, when I can like separate different content about one subject with different colors, it helps me remember it. I don't know if that's just me, but I've noticed that it helps me retain more information about subjects. So that's something you might want to try, is just maybe like color coding your notes and see if that works for you. And what I mean by this is, like, for example, for pathophysiology, there was a lot of like how things would show, like symptoms and things like that. I usually wrote symptoms in red, just because like red to me means like alert. So things like that I would write in red. Things that were more like sciencey about the disease or how it like manifests in the body, I wrote in green. Anything about like cells or like specific parts of the body that weren't like symptoms but more sciencey, if that makes sense, I wrote in green. And then like the definitions of certain things, I wrote in blue. That's just an example. It doesn't have to be, those colors, but that's just kind of what I mean by like color coding, if that makes sense. And then what I loved about this was that at the end of the semester, when you have your final, you literally take all these study guides that you made for yourself and just make it one fat study guide, and you have your final review. You don't have to go through rummaging for a bunch of random notes and have 40 pages that you're looking at when it can be condensed into like 8 or 10. So just a life hack, and I noticed that it's made my studying habits a lot more effective and easier. Another study method that I found really helpful was active recall, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this, but it's basically when you just pick a subject that you're trying to learn about, or you have read about or listened to a video about already, and you just speak or write down what you already know about it. And something I used for this was a whiteboard. I actually just ended up getting my own little roll one for the house, because I ended up going to campus so much to use their whiteboard, and sometimes the room was taken, and I wanted my own. So it's definitely worth the investment, I think, if you can do that. You don't have to get one on wheels, but you can just get like a smaller one. That's what I did at first. Active recall is not only really good for like brain to hand to writing connection to help you remember things, but I feel like it also helped me then know what I don't know. Does that make sense? So when I was like writing things down about a subject and things that I like, kind of like a brain dump on a subject, I would then go back in the textbook and my notes and be like, oh, okay, like I didn't mention this about it, I didn't know this about it, like why didn't I remember that, or like how can I remember that? That's another study tip, is coming up with weird ways to remember things, like whether it's just like the way it's spelled, what it starts with, or if it reminds you of something or it rhymes with something else, like things like that can really help. I also used so many online resources. I mean, it's 2025, we are so lucky to have the amount of resources that we do. I have a couple of YouTubers that I like, Nurse Sarah, Anatomy Hero, Simple Nursing. I'm trying to think who else. Those are the main 3 that I use off the top of my head. But I'll put them in the description below if you guys want to check them out. Something else that you might really want to consider as well is getting a tutor. So a lot of campuses actually do support students with free tutoring on campus. So that is something that you can look into. Most of the time it's within like the library department, at least with my school it is. If not, if for some reason your school does not provide that, ask around. That's what I did. So I was in a very difficult chemistry class this past semester, and when that class first started, I'm telling you, I literally came home and like just cried every day for like 2 weeks, because I thought to myself there was no way that I could do this, right? And like, speaking of mindset, like again, I had to pull myself back together and be like, no, like I actually can do this. Like, yeah, I have imposter syndrome right now, and like I feel like I will never be able to pass this class, because who the hell am I to do this chemistry class, right? Like, I've never taken chemistry before. Like in high school I never took it. So already I was telling myself all these things as to like why I couldn't do it, and then I had to pull myself back together and say, okay, like what are all the reasons that I can do this? Like, what are the things that I've done before that proves to myself that I can do this? So yeah, I did that. I asked around everyone. I was like, does anyone know anyone that's a chem girl? Does anyone know anyone that's good at chem? Because I did try tutoring at my school, and I did have someone for chem, but he was so smart that I feel like he couldn't explain it to me on a level that made sense. Again, not his fault, my fault. But again, I just feel like you utilizing your resources is going to be so helpful for you. If I didn't go around asking my friends, co-workers, people I knew, you know, if they knew anyone that was good at chemistry or could help me, I wouldn't have made a connection to my friend Paige. Shout out to Paige, oh my god. She saved my grade. I ended up getting an A in chemistry. Like, if you told me that months ago, I would have been like, there's no way. There's literally no way. Because I need at least, I think, a C+ in this class. So that was my goal. My goal was a C+. And then like, as the semester went on, and like she was helping me out literally like every week. We would meet for probably like maybe like 3 hours every time we met. I'm so thankful for her. But anyway, like my point here is that you need to utilize your resources, and like even if you try one thing and it's not working, there are other options, and you just got to keep going. So going back to finding supportive friends and having supportive family, I think at the end of the day, this is what makes or breaks people, besides the fact of doing things for yourself and your own success, obviously. But you need to have people in your life that understand to some extent what it's like, and some people don't unless you tell them and you show them and you say, hey, like, this is what I'm going to be going through in this chapter of my life. And some people don't know how to react to that. Sometimes you have to tell people what you need from them, whether it's time for studying, whether it's time for yourself, just time to exist, because it's hectic. Like, you really are busy a lot, and when it comes to people in your life, not everyone's gonna understand that firsthand, and that's okay. You can't expect them to, but you need to be able to like communicate what you need to them. Also, this is important because it helps with accountability, right? There's so many times in our group chat where one of us isn't feeling it that day. We're just like, screw this. Like, we don't mean it. It's just, we have days, right? Everyone has days. There are times when me and my friends have said, like, if you didn't show up to lab today, like, I would have been there, I wouldn't have went. But I know, because if I didn't go, you would have called me up and yelled at me. Like, you just need people that care about you like that, and you will find those people if you just stay yourself and do what you're doing. I really think that that's a great way to find your people. Eventually you'll find them. Maybe not the first day of school, maybe a few weeks in, but you will. Another study hack that I didn't previously mention that might be appropriate for some of my gym people is, I actually used to do this a lot last year, when I really didn't have time to work out with school. But you can actually go study on the treadmill, and I feel like that's really helped me with like retention too. I would watch a lot of like the YouTube videos from a lot of the channels that I'm going to link below that I recommend, and I would watch them as I walk. And there's some studies linked to like memory retention and exercise. I don't know the specifics of the study, but I remember reading it and I was like, that's crazy. Like, why am I not taking advantage of that? So I would just walk, do a half hour on the treadmill, and listen to the videos on the topics that I was learning, and I feel like that really helped. So I'm currently in year 2, technically, of a 4-year BSN program, and I went like this 2 out of 4, only because I have a lot of credits that I transferred from my previous university that I attended a few years ago. I used to be a business major, so obviously not all of the credits went through, but the ones that did, I was able to apply towards the bachelor's in nursing. So I'm still working on that. But that being said, I know how difficult of a journey this can be, and I want you to know that if you work hard, put your head down, do what you need to do, and have patience with yourself, you will do it. Soon I might do another video of like how I got into nursing school, just some things about me and like why I want to do this, and like my backstory before nursing school. But besides that, I'm also going to be posting some like traveling related content. I'm going to be doing some content related to hobbies and fitness. And then I would also like to have some people on here for a few podcast episodes of just people that I think are doing great things that I think are inspiring, motivational content, things to uplift people, things like that. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. If you are currently in nursing school, please comment some of your favorite study hacks, or if you're going into nursing school, please comment what you were most excited for. Thanks for listening. Bye.